You said we had a short agenda, not anymore.
Good times. Great. All right, so we're live. Thanks everyone for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross Project Council. What did I just do there? Okay, that looks fine. Yeah, what are we doing? Do we have any announcements before we get into the agenda?
I have three.
Oh, great.
One is that if you love this meeting, you should stay on for the next one. It's the marketing meeting. And it's important. Marketing is important. This is where we get together and talk about how to tell the world about all of our awesome projects and the awesome stuff that they're doing. So come to the marketing committee meeting immediately following this one. Whole new Zoom, whole new topics. Next AMA, also, that's exciting. We love these AMAs. We've almost been doing them for a whole year now. Rachel really kicks tail at getting these done. We're going to have the AMP TSC on, and that's going to be October 14th, just a week after we normally do it, because announcement number 3 is AMP Fest, is the couple days before. So we're excited to share those upcoming things, and please do join all in these fun little things that we have going on.
Great. Any other announcements? Cool. I guess I should share. I think the open office hours is maybe suspended for now, and I'm trying to figure out the things that were working well there and maybe spin them out into other meetings. Like I liked when a maintainer from a project would come and share how to get involved and kind of go through the whole process and stuff. So maybe we'll spin that out into a different series of webinars or whatever you call them. So, but yeah, all right, great. So we will jump into the agenda here. Let's see. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is to simplify the proposal process. Miles opened this up a couple of weeks ago. I think that this is a great idea. Some people have commented. I think that we just need to start working through the details of this and maybe make a PR to simplify the proposal progression. Does that seem accurate? Does anybody have anything else to add to this or want to talk about it?
I think a good next step is a PR that makes the concrete suggestion for change. It seems like lots of people are in agreement that simplifying it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anybody wants to take that up, I strongly encourage that. Even just to get something started and we can kind of iterate as a group in the PR would be great. If I get time to, I will, but I kind of doubt that I will have the time. So I encourage other folks to consider it. But I know we're all busy, but anyway, so okay, well, we'll see how that progresses and kind of carry on and hopefully an upcoming PR, move that forward. Beyond that, the next item is pull request 618, which I merged yesterday, I think. This is the IP policy guidance. Yeah, I merged that yesterday. Toby wrote this, put this together, working with Brian. So that is an official document now at the top level, if I remember correctly. Yep, IP policy guidance .md in our cross project council repository. Maybe skipping the next one real quickly and going to the CLA, ICLA.
Sorry, Joe, I had one quick question on that from the IP policy. Does documentation have to be separately licensed, or can you just put like if you're using BSD, can you just say documentation is the same as your product or project?
Good question.
It's a good question. So it can probably be really whatever you want, as long as it's one of the approved licenses. One of the reasons for having a separate documentation license is just that, you know, there are a variety of folks who, you know, stare at licenses on a daily basis and for their for their main job, who have said that, you know, it's a little bit easier and there's a little bit less friction involved in, you know, using some of the documentation licenses instead. So it really, you know, if it's not a problem that needs fixing, I'd say you're probably okay. But at the same time, you know, they are there to make things a little bit easier.
Okay, thanks.
We can talk about it more if you want, Dylan.
No, that's totally fine.
I'd be interested to know the specific.
Well, most of our documentation is basically like in the repo with the code, so we had just always just licensed it under the same as our source code. But I understand that. But thanks.
I think the node project's the same. So
okay, cool. That's all I needed. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. So up next is the, I swapped a couple things around, updating the CLA to the Apache style ICLA and CCLA and the related PR, which is provide implementation guidance for DCO CLA. Toby or Brian, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, so on the adopting the CLA, kind of going back the long arc of this, we had started this off with the legal committee and they'd said, you know, basically adhering to the principle of least astonishment, let's switch the CLA over to the Apache style texts because it's pretty typical in the industry. We started a board vote on this and the board said in the process, you know, we should make sure before we finish this that we've got full input from the CPC. To date, I haven't seen anything recently. Well, there have been some comments, but I think we've got them all resolved on switching to the Apache template instead of the one that we inherited from JSF. So I think unless there are any objections with this, we could go back to the board and say that the CPC has had their questions answered. The other question was on the DCO and CLA guidance. I'm going to be honest, I'm completely drowning right now. So it's probably not going to happen this week, but I'm hoping to have this together maybe in the next week or two.
Brian, it took me like 6 weeks, 6 months to get the IP policy guidance. And so, you know, you're in good company there.
True.
So I think we should
kind of set some expectations here. Yeah.
We should effectively close this one with there were no concerns, right? And then treat that, you know, the extra guidance as something separate. Does that make sense?
Do we have an issue open for the extra guidance? I thought we did. Is that 632?
Yeah. Yep. And I added the cross project council agenda to that yesterday. So if we close the previous one, you know, assuming we don't want to close it before, you know, we take it back to the board. I've already applied the label to the one that you opened, Toby, asking for implementation guidance.
So I just have a quick question, if I may, Brian, on 583. The input from the CPC has been taken back to the board already or not yet? I'm a bit confused about like the steps there and whether the board has actually formally approved the Apache style CLAs or not yet.
No, so we're mid-vote on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the feedback
so
was
I think
taken.
at this point,
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So in that case, we should just close the 583 and keep 632 for whenever you get the time to do 632.
that sounds good.
Yeah, we have lots of folks, I think, in the community and on staff who are also homeschooling their kids during COVID.
Yes.
So, yeah, a little
I
extra.
can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry if that sounded like
No,
I
not
wasn't
at all.
following.
No,
Okay, good.
I know you're in the same boat, Toby.
Yeah.
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 Right. Yeah.
I will also say that we have a legal committee call, member legal council call coming up. Robin, I think it's Thursday, right?
Thursday, that's
Thursday.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the topics on there is maybe to get a little bit more clarity around the ways that we handle DCO sign-offs where somebody missed putting it in the message, which has been a topic of conversation. So that's explicitly on the agenda. We're going to do our best to get some final guidance on that as well, which would then go into this, effectively a playbook of if you're going to use DCO, do this. If you're going to use CLA, do this. So we're working our way in towards comprehensive solutions here, which feels really good, honestly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll close. Should we close at 5:05? Do you want me to close it right this second?
Yeah, do you want to just put a little comment in there? And,
Yep,
and we
I can do that.
Focus on the new one. Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
Great. So moving on, the next item is develop annual review process for projects. This is issue 592. We have had a couple of meetings on this, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, we've met twice.
So, yeah, Toby, you want to give us an update?
Sure, we've met twice. We did some blue ocean thinking for a little while. And then thanks to Chris Hiller, who sort of like brought us back to reality, decided to focus on meaningful things that we could do right away. One of them is issue 641 that's below, which is renaming the project onboarding repository to project status and handling growth projects in there. And the other issue is for me to write a PR of a sort of like a questionnaire of what growth projects should, questions growth projects should answer to build their roadmap to move into impact. And once we have those two things organized, either reconvene or to pursue like blue ocean thinking, or just like focus directly on working with growth projects to get them to create their roadmap and move from there.
On behalf of intern, I would say I think intern is probably going to suggest that it becomes an at-large project, just because I don't think there's enough interest in becoming an impact project for it. It's like a testing tool that a lot of people use, but it's probably never going to focus on being like the big testing tool that everyone uses, and it's just not there. They just are happy with what they're doing and making sort of annual updates. And I think they just kind of originally positioned themselves as growth because they weren't looking to really like, they sort of felt like they were closer in theory to impact in terms of size and breadth and scope of the project. So, and I know this is sort of asked elsewhere, but it feels like some of the projects that are, most of the projects that are sort of under at large are kind of like smaller libraries, right? Or maybe bigger libraries, maybe they're widely used, but they're not really looking to like become frameworks, right? And then most of the stuff on our impact project are pretty big frameworks or have really large communities. But intern is kind of this like framework that doesn't need to get bigger, but also is pretty big in what it does. So I wasn't sure where it should fit in, I guess is the question. I still don't know where it really fits in.
So if I may sort of quickly address that from the blue ocean thinking that we've done,
yeah,
we're not super clear if we should continue having growth as a sort of like intermediate stage, like a stage in the middle of moving from at large to impact, or if it should be renamed and be a sort of like thing in the middle that exists as such, and that the actual growth plan could be something that any project could like ask and do, maybe like, I don't know, every other year or something like this. So this is sort of like still in the yeah, we're not really clear about this. And I think actually having the feedback from projects that are in growth and that would like to stay there, but wouldn't want to move to impact would be kind of useful. So if we go back to this blue ocean thinking at some point, it would be great if you could join us or have someone from that project join it to sort of like make their case.
The other thing that I'd be interested in is there any issue with being at large? Like, what's the downside, right? Like, I understand that, it's today it's maybe a little bit of a mismatch, but that might not be the case over time. And so I'm just wondering, like, is there actually a problem?
If I could, I mean, back when we had originally put these categories together, the discussion was less so about mentoring and progression and more so about allocation of resources. So initially there was the understanding that the impact projects would probably have the most need for, for money for doing things like conferences or for marketing support or things like that. That at-large projects would be the ones which were, stable and comfortable, didn't necessarily need a whole lot other than to have a home and have a structure and have representation on the CPC. And growth was meant to be effectively, these are projects which otherwise were not big, but were intending to become bigger and would need some additional time, focus, energy, money, etc. So that was the way that these were originally conceived. I'm not saying they need to stay that way or anything like that, but maybe if that kind of helps put it into a context of why they were put together this particular way.
Yeah, I would ask if any of the projects besides AMP are actually following any sort of growth plan currently.
I think from what we understand, no.
Yeah.
Right. Like that was what the issue that was brought up, is that it's probably time to change that if we're going to continue with the original idea, which was that it'd be a growth phase versus a stay forever kind of thing. And because I think, the first year we focused on just getting everything up and running, we're past that. So now is the right time to say either we it doesn't make sense anymore, or we should start to make sure that, growth means that we're doing those kind of both from the project and from the CPC helping and the foundation helping side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for what it's worth, I do like the idea of there being some kind of growth-ish designation, because I think that's a great way for a project to put their hand up and say, hey, we actually have a goal. We want to add, 3 new people to our TSC, and we want to make sure our steering committee, and we want to, make sure they're from a diversity of companies and that kind of thing. Okay, cool. Like, that's something we can help with as a CPC, we can help with as a foundation. And the at-large designation has been largely, hey, we're happy with how things are going. Status quo for us is good right now. So, just that other phase that says we want some extra help with something specific is useful. Now, if nobody's using that right now because they don't actually have, a goal in mind or something, then yeah, they should move to a different thing. But I think that's the spirit.
Toby?
Yeah, one of the things Joe suggested in our last meeting on this topic was to have a work session of the CPC on this. Should we postpone this conversation that we're having now to such a session and decide to organize one today, maybe in 2 weeks?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, +1.
Yeah, and then maybe by that point we'll have some of the other stuff fleshed out a little bit, and some more things to talk about, perhaps, Toby.
I'll definitely have the PR by then.
Great. Cool. Yeah, I was even wondering about next week, but next week is another 10 a.m. call Eastern.
You mentioned that next week was not a good fit because of the time.
I don't know if it's not a good fit. It's just we're trialing this new time, and does it make sense to trial it as well as doing a working group session? I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. I just thought I'd raise that as a question.
I personally don't care either way. So
yeah, we had a lot of people at the last one, so
yeah, I think
I don't see any reason from that perspective, unless it's like we're less likely to get the people who need to be in the conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like too, our agenda is reflecting that we're moving forward on some things, which is great, and it might be a light agenda for next week anyway. So I'm all for diving into the project review. I feel like the project review could be a bigger topic too. If we think about the whole 360 thing. So more work we do on it, I think the better.
Do we have a list of which CPC members are involved with growth projects? I know Chris Hiller and Toby and myself. Is anyone else in this group? Like, if we could get all of the people that have mutual overlap on the same call, that would probably be useful too.
Christian Broman also attends CPC meetings where he can, and Nick O'Leary, I believe. Node-RED is a project.
So maybe we could reach out to the two of them since they haven't been on the calls in a while and just see if they could attend either for the next 2 weeks and pick the one that works for them.
So Christian was on, I think, both of the calls, or at least one of them. And if
Okay.
I'm not wrong, he's on the same time zone as like European time zone, so it should be easy for him next week.
Yeah.
Chris, I guess Chris Hiller, that might be a bit early for you.
Yeah, that'd be like 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Dude, I relate.
Yeah.
I know why I'm based in Europe and I work with people on the West Coast.
Yeah. I wonder about maybe doing the next 2 weeks, and that way we really kind of cover the gamut and, you know, can work in the PR. We can, you know, it doesn't have to be all synchronous, but if we maybe dedicate the next 2 weeks, we could really make some progress on this.
Yeah, maybe we take
like
the
that.
first 10, 15 minutes just to like see if there's anything high priority on the agenda, polish those off, and then skip to that for the bulk of the meeting.
Yep. And if I may ask Toby or Chris, you know, any prep work to do before the meeting would be great to jump us right into a productive session. You having trouble finding the mute button, Toby? Try unmuting you. No, it won't let me. Anyway. Regardless. So let's plan for next week. Sorry, Chris, it'll be early, but you know, potentially do the next 2 weeks in a row and work on the growth project process. Do we lose him all together?
I think it
Toby?
crashed.
Oh, there he is.
Zoom
There he
crashed.
goes. Yeah, he's here. You're back, Toby.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you all froze. I was like, yeah, wait, that must be on my side.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's tentatively plan the next 2 weeks to work on this, and we can do it synchronously. Great. And I was just saying to Toby and Chris, if you can help with any sort of prep work, or let me know how I can help, just to make the in-person sessions as productive as possible.
Noted. I'm trying to think about that.
In person, you know. Cool. Well, great. I'm excited about that. But we will move on unless anybody has anything else to add. If anyone can drop some notes in that conversation for the meeting notes, that would be great. And I will jump over to you, Michael, for the next issue, pull request 547, governance changes for Collab Network.
Right, that one I was just checking. I think Brian has made a suggested update. There are a number of +1s, and I guess I did want to ask if people were comfortable with that landing, or we thought there was additional discussion required.
I have no objections.
I see about 8 people have +1. I don't see any outstanding suggestions or objections, I don't think.
And just to be clear, this is board approved with the CPC charter changes?
This is still a proposal. So what we need to do is land this. This I believe is, okay, so sorry. The one I wanted to ask was the one that Brian had updated, which is, let me find that one.
I feel like half the time we spend on this PR is just trying to find it. So I'm sorry for opening it up in a weird place.
Right, because yes, where is that?
It was adding guidance or something to it. I'll find it.
Governance change, no.
Add license preference to Collab Network. It is
right.
PR
Okay, there we
620.
go. Right. So yeah. So the one I was hoping we could land is 620, which is this one. And sorry, I just put that in the wrong place. So this is 6:20. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people who've said that seems okay. There was some back and forth, and I think Brian has added in like some wording about why. And so if this can land, then the next step would be to rebase 547, which are the governance changes for the collaboration network, and in which case we could go back to the board and say, okay, we've updated based on suggestions. Can we, start a vote or complete the vote?
Cool, great, sounds like a plan.
So are people, no objections to that one landing? It was open, it's been open more than on the 14th, so more than 2 weeks, a bunch of +1s. So I'll go ahead and land that if nobody speaks up right now.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Great. So then, if I understand correctly, you'll land that, you'll rebase, and then you'll take the 547 to the board.
Correct.
Okay. All right, great. So you can drop that into the docs. I will move on. So responsible security disclosures is next. There's a related pull request. This is issue 326. The pull request is 633. This is moving the proposal to stage 3. We've got a few approvals here. It's been open for 2 weeks.
Yeah, the note I put in there is I'm thinking like it just reached the 14 days today. So I think it's ready to land again. So if there's no objections to anybody here, that would be my suggestion, this next step.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me.
I will push the button.
Sweet. Excellent. All right, so moving on, the next item is something born out of the project review process, rename project onboarding repo to project status. Toby opened this 11 hours ago. You want to give some context here, Toby?
Yeah, essentially the idea was the road mapping for growth projects should follow a vaguely similar solution to project onboarding, which has proven to work reasonably well. And hence, why don't we stick everything in the same repository that will be easier to review? And hence, we just have to rename that repository. There was consensus among the 3 to 4 to 5 people on that issue to move forward with this. And so this is like a formal request to get approval from sort of the broader CPC, as we don't really have a process to do this differently than using an issue.
Yeah, seems good to me. You got 10 thumbs there as of now. So I think, like Toby said, there's not a clear process to this, but does anybody have any objections to just moving forward, or does anybody think we need to like wait a certain amount of time? I feel like it's pretty non-controversial.
None from me. I really actually quite support it. So let's do it.
Likewise.
Just curious, Michael, how does this work in Node? As project renaming, does that need to be open for a couple of days?
I don't know if we have actually a renaming policy. We have a, like when you want to ask for a new repo, you open issue in admin, and it waits a couple days. You know, I think this is fine for us to rename it. It's the kind of thing somebody can complain afterwards. We could undo it. It's not can't see it being too controversial anyway. So
yeah, we have pretty much the same org policy. I copied it over a year or two ago from Node, but it doesn't say anything about renaming. So cool. Let's just go for it.
What would the next steps for that be? Because I certainly cannot do it. So, or at least not that I know of. Like, who has access?
As a CPC member, you should be able to.
Oh, I do? Okay. So I can just go ahead and rename it?
Try it.
All right.
Here, I'll give you the link. There it is. Go to settings. I'll get the
I
popcorn.
do. It's project status, right? I don't want to make a stupid mistake now.
We can rename it all day. So yeah, that's what we suggested.
Yep, all done. Wonderful. I didn't know I had so much power. Now I'm going to go abuse it.
Yeah,
The
I was
only-
just
the
gonna
only
say,
thing
how
that-
do I have permission for that too? That's scary.
Hey, let me
The
jump
only
in
thing
here.
I would mention is that there'll be redirects, I think. So we may now have a bunch of links that are a bit out of date, but
Yeah, so we should fix those. Sarah, can you take the next issue? I need to jump onto a call really quickly. I apologize. I'll try to be quick.
No worries, I'm on it. So the next issue is the supporter program. I'm assuming I'm not following along on the doc, but I'm assuming that's
No,
what
you're
asked
right.
me.
I missed the call.
Great. So we met last week to talk spec. There's some fun stuff on the spec to take a look at. Toby left a bunch of comments. Thank you. I want to look at those this afternoon. The goal here is to get this out by early October. And in order to do that, we need to move it along during the phases and also get it in front of the board. So if people don't mind taking a look this week, there's a lot of to-dos here with a lot of help from the foundation in general. I think very little falls upon the CPC besides maintaining the supporter network and just being here to help when needed. So if you have time this week, take a look, thumbs up, thumbs down. I'll work to resolve comments as they come in, and maybe we can have the idea is to get it to phase 2 and then in front of the board, which I assume that's phase 3. Is that correct? Or is phase 2 getting in front of the
it's
board?
phase 3.
Okay. Yeah. So is there, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to ask, like, is the foundation staff been involved? Any concerns over the asks that are in there?
Oh, nope. And we've outlined them all and we're executing. So excited.
Okay, excellent.
Great. Yeah, take a look when you get a chance. They're fun, and feel free to add in your own suggestions. We can include them or not. So I guess would it be a reasonable goal to try to get it into phase 3 in 2 weeks if we're super responsive on comments and things like that?
Honestly,
I
why
don't know
not?
that we have any waiting time. I'd even propose, like, by set a comment in there saying, hey, we'll land this by next week, a week from today if there's no comments or objections.
Okay, great.
Is that okay with everybody else?
Sounds good to me. Let's keep an idea too, if we're going to work on the review process next week, to just check in on this first and move forward.
Okay, awesome. Great.
Cool. Great. So that concludes our agenda. I wouldn't mind actually jumping into a private session for a minute. Something I was reminded of something during the meeting that I wouldn't mind just discussing with folks. So if you don't mind, we can hang out for a minute, and I'll call it a wrap on the public meeting. Cool. Great. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you're watching, or in the future, I hope we have flying cars. I will stop